Good evening. Donald back with another video for D&D Defense. Today's video is not really just going to touch more so on the philosophical components of martial arts, self-defense. And I know to some this may be boring, but it's certainly applicable, not only from the physical element of self-defense, but psychological and strategical as well. And philosophically speaking, martial arts plays a vital role in people's decision making and problem solving skills that carry into life, not just into being able to defend yourself. Now, while that is the key element to self-defense instruction, and this includes weapons as well. I more so with martial arts, but let's not mistaken weapons-based training is not a martial art. It is a martial art, or it is a form of a martial art. Whether it's knives, sticks, bats, guns, it is a martial art. So that being said, the philosophical element of martial arts is essentially teaching you how to problem solve in real time. But not only that, but there's a stress element to it. And so, for example, when I go in for a training session, whether it be firearms, knives, or some sort of sparring session in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai, the one key component that stands out to me is that any one of those creates a certain element of stress. And not only does it create stress, but it forces you to have to be composed in how to deal with what's happening that's causing the stress in the first place. And for those who are watching, you may be asking yourselves, well, how's that relevant to life? Well, it is. Take, for example, you take two samples, one individual that has training of some sort and then one individual that doesn't. And they get into a car accident, a very stressful situation. On one side, you're going to have a person who's panicking, doesn't know what to do, and almost guaranteed makes the situation significantly worse for themselves, as opposed to the person who has some element of training and is used to stressful situations. This just becomes another stressful situation that he has to deal with. Yes, is it upsetting? I'm not denying that humans don't have emotions just because, or martial artists don't have emotions just because they do some variant of a martial art. That's not the point. The point is that when you train, there's a stress element that comes with it in order for you to be better prepared to deal with a threat. It's building that stress response. And so that goes with every type of life event that will be stressful for you. And so, to my point with the car accident, the person who has training will be a little more calm and collective, and you will see how they deal with the situation. And this translates across the board in life, whether it's at your job, with your significant other, your kids, your ability to handle a stressful situation calmly allows for you to have handle this, whatever the situation is you're dealing with, more productively. And so So when you train, regardless of what martial art you're training in or what discipline you're training in, um, it's not just about the self-defense. There lies the philosophical element of it. Is that yes, there is the the physical element of defending yourself, whether using a weapon or other, or your hands. But there's also that philosophical and strategic element as well. Being able to remain calm in a stressful situation and then problem solve or strategize the problem and resolve it in a calm manner. And anybody that's ever been angry, and I think we can all attest to being angry, no, everybody's guilty of it. And anybody that tells you they're not, regardless of their skill set, is lying. But that being said, um, people with training or extensive training tend to be able to get that anger or frustration under control, um, particularly under a very stressful situation. Why? Because they do it every day. They go in and they have somebody try and punch their face off, or what I'm saying, choke them out, or put them in an arm bar, or attack them with a stick or knife. And yes, these are controlled environments when you're training, but your body and your mind doesn't understand that when it's all happening, and it's happening at a relatively fast pace. And so it adds that flight or fight element, which is essentially stress. And so the more and more you do that, the more and more you condition and callous your mind and body to dealing with those stressful situations. And so therefore it translates into the world. And when it translates into the world, your ability to problem solve is significantly heightened, because you're handling problems that create levels of stress calmly. And when you handle any situation calmly, you're almost guaranteed a positive outcome out of it. There's outliers that may result in a negative consequence, even if remaining calm. But that would be very rare for it to be a worse situation, even if you're calm, as opposed to especially if you're comparing it to somebody who is just completely erratic and panicking. You take somebody who's drowning. If somebody's panicking, usually that's the person who's going to drown before the person who's calm, collective, and is keeping his wits about himself. So without digressing too much, I just wanted to touch on the philosophical element of martial arts training and self-defense training as a whole. And that if anybody's ever thinking about getting into self-defense, at minimum, get into it for that. Get into it for what it does for you spiritually, mentally, and fit. Obviously physically, it's going to get you physically fit. But all the other elements that come with it, aside from the surface value stuff that from the outside looking in, people just see it as, learning how to, physically dominate somebody else or to beat somebody up, quote unquote. And yes, while that may be true for an experienced martial artist, most martial artists aren't violent men, or women. But they are capable of violence, and they know how to turn it on and off, which hence, back to my original point, is that's what the training is for. It puts you in those stress moments where you know how to deal with a stressful situation, what that stressful situation requires, and the amount of effort that is required to handle that given situation, whatever it may be. And it doesn't always have to be a self-defense scenario. I know we are discuss self-defense, and that's my primary focus when teaching people is, techniques and ways to develop awareness and so on and so forth, but in strategies, stuff of that nature. But I think people tend to lose touch with the philosophical element of it, and how it's applicable to everything in life, as I've pretty much just illustrated. That being said, I know this video is more just me kind of talking and getting philosophical, but I think it's important for anybody that is looking to do self-defense to understand that it's just more than learning how to fight or learning how to handle yourself in a physical altercation, whether it be with weapons or your hands. And so I think that's important, particularly if you have kids and you're looking to get your kids into self-defense, because this is massively helpful for them in their development when coming up. It instills discipline, delayed gratification, because you're just not going to get rank. You're not going to get the art instantaneously. It takes practice, dedication, failure, all things that carry over into life, and learning how to deal with those things and deal with them in a calm, collective manner while learning from it, and then taking that and applying it to better yourself. I just think that that's massively important for any person of any age limit, but particularly with kids because they're in their developmental stages. And so to institute something that would help foster discipline and dedication, passion, as well as, conditioning of the body, I think is important. And so if you do have kids and you've been thinking about signing them up for some form of martial art, don't hesitate, do it. I highly recommend it. The kids at the school that I train at, highly disciplined for their ages. Yes, do they, act immaturely? Of course they do. They're kids. But that being said, for kids at their age, growth and maturity and development will certainly increase dramatically the more and more they dedicate themselves to the art. So that being said, I'll end here, and I'll end with training for kids, because I while I don't traditionally train kids, because that's not something that's actually been presented to me, or that situation has never been presented to me. Most of the time it's adults coming to me wanting training. That being said, if you're in the Harford County area and you have kids and you're looking to get them into self-defense, and you want them to kind of learn at their own pace, but also get one-on-one instruction, then I'm the person for you. Not to mention that I also have virtual training as well. And what I mean by that is it's a weapons-based firearms virtual reality. But for those parents who may be interested in guns, interested in getting their permit, or already have their permit, I think it's a very good way to acclimate your child to a firearm, and some of the ways a firearm operates, and how to handle it in a way that's controlled, because it's virtual reality. It's not something that is a realistic weapon. You're not using a real weapon. You're not using real ammo, and it's cost effective because you don't have to buy the ammo. So I think it's good to kind of at least expose your kids to that stuff, and then as the parent, and I'm not going to sit here and play the role of the parent for others, but what I will say is that exposure in combination with the parents providing some tips and safety practice with their children. If they do own a firearm in the house, and there's a firearm in the home, it is always recommended to get your kids familiar early, because while I don't know the exact statistics behind it, there is a significant percentage of kids that die at the hands of guns for no other reason than they found it in an unlocked box, and they just had no respect for the weapon because they weren't educated on it, and had no familiarity with how the weapon operates, and therefore an accident happens and they end up killing themselves. Teaching your kids not only how a weapon operates and its safety mechanism, but also just the basic stuff, keeping it locked up, in a proper location, or in a location where it's only accessible to you and not to your kids. And even then, I caution you on that, because kids are very resourceful in the sense that they find things that otherwise you would think that they wouldn't find, and they get access to it. And for guns, that's the last thing you want them getting access to, especially if they don't have any formal training with it. And so at D&D Defense, that's what we kind of offer. A virtual experience for kids to, basically engage in a game like a shooting game, which gets them familiar with, trigger pull, how to unload a weapon, stuff of that nature. And then obviously I have, training tools as well that would get them familiar with an actual weapon, and what it may feel like and stuff like that. That still maintains the control aspect of the training. So that being said, if you're in the Harford County of Connecticut, look me up, dnddefense.com. My YouTube channel is D&D Defense at Myers 51, and you can also look me up on Instagram at D&D _ self _ defense _ training. I do have a Facebook page, but I haven't utilized it in a while, so I do not have that handle available. I believe it's just D&D Defense. You should be able to look that up on Facebook. But that being said, if you're interested, look me up on those platforms for not only content, but also my website where you can sign up. And if you have any other questions, please leave a comment below, and I'll try and respond to it as soon as I can. That being said, I ask that you, hit the like button, subscribe, and in order to give more content, if you do like this content, and just remember, stay smart and stay safe. Thank you.